Hello, and welcome to Recipes with Ben. In today's video, I'm going to show you how easy it is to make hop water. If you have a spare kegerator kicking around that you want to fill up with something tasty that's non-alcoholic, try out this. Now with all that said, let's get into how to make it. The first step in making hop water is determine what batch size you need. So for me, I'm starting with 2 gallons of reverse osmosis water and adding that to my gigawort brew kettle. Next, it's recommended to drop the pH of the water down to somewhere between 3 to 4.5. So in this case, I'm going to use lactic acid to do that, to drop the pH and monitor with my pH meter. I then turn the heat to a boil and boil it for 10 minutes to sanitize the water. Now the hop choice is 100% up to you, but for me, what I chose was a citra and mosaic combo. And it's said that a general rule of thumb to make things not too bitter is to have 1 ounce of hops per 1 gallon of water. I like to use mesh bags for hops, so it's easier to clean up at the end. So I place the hops inside and tie it to my brew spoon for the next part. I then lower the temperature from boiling to 180 degrees Fahrenheit and let the hops steep in the water for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, I simply pull the mesh bag out with the hops and place that in a bowl and set that to a side. I then transferred the hot liquid from my brew kettle to my clean and sanitized keg, and I used my siphon to move it from one spot to the next, and then sealed it up and placed it in the fridge to cool overnight. After about 24 hours, the hot liquid would cool down to proper fridge temp, so then I decided to pressurize it to 10 psi, let it sit at 10 psi for 24 hours, and then increase it to 15 for serving. So now let's move on to the tasting and see how the final product turned out. All right, so I showed you how easy it is. I made this specific batch with citra and mosaic hops that are kind of that classic, I think like New England style IPA. So right off the bat for the color, it's got that kind of like, hazy green, almost like algae-ish to something like that. Right on the carbonation, just so you are aware, is at like 15 psi. It is a little shook up because I moved the keg to pour it, but typically it pours pretty nicely. The carbonation goes pretty quickly if you let it sit around because it's only a seltzer and there's nothing really to help let it sit in solution. So yeah, you get this nice like piney bitterness with it. Almost like herbal. I don't really know how to describe it. It's not like the normal hop character because I think the yeast definitely does some transformation to give that like kind of characteristic. Yeah, and it's kind of like it's super light. I think that's kind of the describer I would like to say. It has this nice residual bitterness at the end to kind of give you a bite. And in the beginning, it's kind of got some subtle hop notes, but it's kind of clean in the beginning. So I was originally inspired to make this, but because of Clawhammer Supply's video, and I'll link that video down below, where they made this and just saying how cheap it was. And so for me, I made about a 1.5 to 2 gallon batch of this stuff with just 2 ounces of hops, and that was like $6 total. So it's pretty nice. I think you're getting a good bang for your buck in this case. It only takes maybe a half an hour when you're brewing it. I will say, though, I think this recipe is not perfect. I think this is a good starting point, similar to how I talked about like the cider I made before, where that was just kind of very basic. I think, honestly, adding some extra stuff to this, maybe a little bit of sweetness to it, like honey or a little bit of sugar, just like the smallest amount, just to kind of balance out that bitterness that's going with it. What I will say, and I've found while drinking this, is I like adding lime or lemon to it to kind of help bring it out, and it kind of changes the flavor profile. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. So if you don't like adding fruit to your hop water, don't do it. But I did see that because you want to lower the pH to like 4.5 or to 3, depending on in that kind of range, based on like other seltzer waters. So I think using something like a fruit, it's like that. It's like either orange or lemon to kind of lower that pH will also help the flavor profile. So now it's like you add in the lemon and lime to it. You can definitely smell the subtle notes of the citrus fruit. And it really helps in the beginning. It gives you a nice like flavorful bite, and then it rounds it out with the hop bitterness to kind of get that duality. So I think this is good. I think if you have, like I said in the beginning, spare room in a kegerator that you're just looking to try it out and do something, I know plenty of home brewers that put just seltzer water on tap. So if you have some hops kicking around, try this out. You can have it done in under a day. For me, as I saw in the video, I just, boiled it, cooled down 180 degrees, threw in the hops, and then just put it in the keg right away, sealed it up and let it cool overnight until it reached, refrigerator temperature. And then I charge it with some CO2 up to 10 PSI, let that sit again for a little while, and then increase it all the way up to 15 PSI. And then that was it. And then I've had this on tap for over a week right now. I've been drinking it all week. It's pretty good. So I think this is better in the summer. So with that said, thank you so much. Let me know down below if you made anything like this or even improvements and how you would make or what your recipes are and how you make them better. If you're new to the channel, please don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future videos. And I'll see you again soon. Thank you. Cheers.